The Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, part 1, Works and Sacrifice. Arjuna is not unfamiliar with the current teaching, which points man to the path of knowledge and to the renunciation of life and works as his way to perfection. Krishna seems quite to admit the orthodox Sankhya doctrine when he says that works are far inferior to the yoga of the intelligence. And yet works are insisted upon as part of the yoga. Krishna has said that knowledge, intelligence is greater than works, but he did not mean that inaction is greater than action. Knowledge does not mean renunciation of works. It means equality and non-attachment to desire and the objects of sense. And it means the poise of the intelligent will and the soul, free and high lifted above the lower instrumentation of Prakriti, and controlling the works of the mind and the senses and body in the power of self-knowledge and the pure objectless self-delight of spiritual realization. The Gita dwells on the ancient Indian system and idea of sacrifice as an interchange between gods and men, a system and idea which have long been practically obsolete in India itself and are no longer real to the general human mind. But we find here a sense so entirely subtle, figurative and symbolic, given to the word sacrifice, and the conception of the gods is so little local or mythological, so entirely cosmic and philosophical, that we can easily accept both as expressive of a practical fact of psychology and general law of nature, and so apply them to the modern conception of interchange between life and life, and of ethical sacrifice and self-giving, as to widen and deepen these, and cast over them a more spiritual aspect and the light of a profounder and more far-reaching truth. The best, the Superman of the Gita, is not of the Nietzschean type. He is the man whose whole personality has been offered up into the being, nature, and consciousness of the one transcendent and universal divinity, and by the loss of the smaller self has found its greater self, has been divinized. His influence, his example must have a power which that of no ordinary superior man can exercise. The Avatar gives his own example, his own standard to Arjuna. The motive of his action cannot be personal desire, for that has been abandoned. This great march of the peoples towards a far-off divine ideal has to be held together by the rule and example, by the visible standard and the invisible influence of the best.
Arjuna uvacha jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tatkim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava vyamishrene vakyena buddhim mohayasi vame tadekam vada nishchitya yena shreyo hamapnuyam. Sri Bhagavan uvacha लोकेऽस्मिन् विविधा निष्ठा पुरा प्रोक्ता मया नघ ज्ञानयोगेन साङ्ख्यानां कर्मयोगेन योगिनां न कर्मणामनारम्भान् नैष्कर्म्यं पुरुषोऽश्नुते न च संन्यसनादेव सिद्धिं समधिगच्छति न हि कश्चित् क्षणमपि जातु तिष्ठत्य कर्मकृत् कार्यते ह्यवशः कर्म सर्वः प्रकृतिजैर्गुणैः कर्मेन्द्रियाणि संयम्य य आस्ते मनसा स्मरन् इन्द्रियार्थान् विमूढात्मा मिथ्याचारस्य उच्यते यस्त्विन्द्रियाणि मनसा नियम्यारभतेऽर्जुन कर्मेन्द्रियैः कर्मयोगमसक्तः स विशिष्यते नियतं कुरु कर्म त्वं कर्मज्यायो ह्यकर्मणः शरीरयात्रापि च तेन प्रसिद्ध्येद कर्मणः यज्ञार्थात् कर्मणोऽन्यत्र लोकोऽयं कर्मबन्धनः तदर्थं कर्म कौन्तेय मुक्तसङ्गः समाचर सह यज्ञाः प्रजा सृष्ट्वा पुरोवाच प्रजापतिः अनेन प्रसविष्यध्वमेशवोऽस्त्विष्टकामधुक् देवान् भावयतानेन ते देवा भावयन्तु वः परस्परं भावयन्तः श्रेयः परमवाप्स्यथ इष्टान् भोगान् हि वो देवा दास्यन्ते यज्ञभाविताः तैर्दत्ता न प्रदायैभ्यो यो भुङ्क्तेस्तेन एव सः यज्ञशिष्टाशिनः सन्तो मुच्यन्ते सर्वकिल्बिषैः भुञ्जते ते त्वघं पापा ये पचन्त्यात्मकारणात् अन्नाद्भवन्ति भूतानि पर्जन्यादन्नसम्भवः यज्ञाद्भवति पर्जन्यो यज्ञः कर्मसमुद्भवः कर्म ब्रह्मोद्भवं विद्धि ब्रह्माक्षरसमुद्भवं तस्मात् सर्वगतं ब्रह्म नित्यं यज्ञे प्रतिष्ठितम् एवं प्रवर्तितं चक्रं नानुवर्तयति हयः अघायुरिन्द्रियारामो मोघं पार्थ स जीवति यस्त्वात्मरतिरेव स्यात् आत्मतृप्तश्च मानवः आत्मन्येव च सन्तुष्टस्तस्य कार्यं न विद्यते नैव तस्य कृतेनार्थो नाकृतेनेह कश्चन न चास्य सर्वभूतेषु कश्चिदर्थं व्यपाश्रयः तस्मादसक्तः सततं कार्यं कर्म समाचर असक्तो हि आचरन् कर्म परमाप्नोति पूरुषः कर्मणैव हि संसिद्धि मास्थिता जनकादयः लोकसङ्ग्रहमेवापि सम्पश्यन् कर्तुमर्हसि यद्यदाचरति श्रेष्ठस्तत्तदेवेतरो जनः स यत्प्रमाणं कुरुते लोकस्तदनुवर्तते न मे पार्थास्ति कर्तव्यं त्रिषु लोकेषु किञ्चन नानवाप्तमवाप्तव्यं वर्त एव च कर्मणि यदि ह्यहं न वर्तेयं जातु कर्मण्यतन्द्रितः मम वर्तमानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्याः पार्थ सर्वशः उत्सीदेयुर्मे लोका न कुर्यां कर्म चेदहं शङ्करस्य च कर्ता स्यामुपहन्यामिमाः प्रजाः सक्ताः कर्मण्यविद्वांसो यथा कुर्वन्ति भारत कुर्याद्विद्वांस्तथा सक्तश्चिकीर्षुर्लोकसङ्ग्रहं न बुद्धिभेदं जनये दज्ञानां कर्मसङ्गिनां जोषयेत् सर्वकर्माणि विद्वान् युक्तः समाचरन्
Works and sacrifice. Arjuna said, "If thou holdest the intelligence to be greater than works, O Janardana, why then dost thou, O Keshava, appoint me to a terrible work? Thou seemest to bewilder my intelligence with a confused and mingled speech. Tell me then decisively that one thing by which I may attain to my soul's weal." The Blessed Lord said, "In this world twofold is the self-application of the soul by which it enters into the Brahmic condition, as I before said, O sinless one, that of the Sankhyas by the yoga of knowledge, that of the yogins by the yoga of works. Not by abstention from works does a man enjoy actionlessness, nor by mere renunciation of works does he attain to his perfection. For none stands even for a moment not doing work. Everyone is made to do action helplessly by the modes born of Prakriti. Who controls the organs of action? but continues in his mind to remember and dwell upon the objects of sense, such a man has bewildered himself with false notions of self-discipline. He who, controlling the senses by the mind, O Arjuna, without attachment engages with the organs of action in yoga of action, he excels. Do thou do controlled action, for action is greater than inaction. Even the maintenance of thy physical life cannot be effected without action. By doing works otherwise than for sacrifice, this world of men is in bondage to works. For sacrifice practice works, O son of Kunti, becoming free from all attachment. With sacrifice the Lord of creatures of old created creatures and said, by this shall you bring forth fruits or offspring. Let this be your milker of desires. Foster by this the gods, and let the gods foster you. Fostering each other, you shall obtain to the supreme good. Fostered by sacrifice, the gods shall give you desired enjoyments. Who enjoys their given enjoyments and has not given to them, he is a thief. The good who eat what is left from the sacrifice are released from all sin. But evil are they and enjoy sin who cook the food for their own sake. From food creatures come into being. From rain is the birth of food. From sacrifice comes into being the rain. Sacrifice is born of work. Work know to be born of Brahman. Brahman is born of the immutable. Therefore is the all-pervading Brahman established in the sacrifice. He who follows not here the wheel thus set in movement, evil is his being, sensual is his delight. In vain, O Partha, that man lives. But the man whose delight is in the self, and who is satisfied with enjoyment of the self, and in the self he is content, for him there exists no work that needs to be done. He has no object here to be gained by action done, and none to be gained by action undone. He has no dependence on all these existences for any object to be gained. Therefore, without attachment, perform ever the work that is to be done for the sake of the world. For by doing work without attachment, man attains to the highest. It was even by works that Janaka and the rest attained to perfection. Thou shouldst do works regarding also the holding together of the peoples. Whatsoever the best doeth, that the lower kind of man puts into practice. The standard he creates, the people follow. O son of Pritha, I have no work that I need to do in all the three worlds. I have nothing that I have not gained, and I have yet to gain. And I abide verily in the paths of action. I abide in it, and do not leave it as the sannyasin thinks himself bound to abandon works. For if I did not abide sleeplessly in the paths of action, men follow in every way my path. These peoples would sink to destruction if I did not work, and I should be the creator of confusion and slay these creatures. As those who know not act with attachment to the action, he who knows should act without attachment, having for his motive to hold together the peoples. He should not create a division of their understanding in the ignorant who are attached to their works. He should set them to all actions, doing them himself with knowledge and in yoga.